I would like to talk a little bit on political and economic relations between Germany and Pakistan. At what level is the current foreign trade volume between Germany and Pakistan, and how many German investors are operating in Pakistan? And which sector, of course?
Pakistan and Germany enjoy excellent relations. We have multi-dimensional relations. We have excellent understanding in in political terms. We also have extensive economic cooperation, particularly in the area of trade and investment. In terms of trade, Germany is one of the largest trading partners of Pakistan. The volume of trade is still small in terms of the actual potential. If you compare it to the actual potential, it's about $3.5 billion a year. But the prospects of growth are very much there. In fact, for the last few years, there was a double-digit growth going on. This year, it has slowed down a bit, partly because there's that kind of recessionary environment right now in Germany, and we were facing a financial crisis in Pakistan as well. But we envisage that from next year, again, we'll see a substantial growth in trade. In terms of investment, again, Germany is an important country for Pakistan. Very many German companies have a history of investment in Pakistan, like Siemens Siemens, in fact, was there in what is, like Pakistan today, before 1947, even in Lahore they had an office. And they've always been there, and they've been actively contributing in terms of commercial cooperation. Then again, Metro has set up many stores in Pakistan. Volkswagen has signed an agreement to set up a car producing plant, which will be producing 30,000 cars a year. Many other German companies are in Pakistan as well, Bayer and Henkel. I can keep on taking names, but there are many companies which are present in Pakistan. But I have to say, in the last few years, the last 10 years, let's say, that investment cooperation did not grow as had been the case in previous decades. It was because of that perception of the terrorism that we were facing in Pakistan, and some regional instability perhaps. But we envision now that we see a lot of interest from German companies for investing in Pakistan again, because it's so lucrative there, the opportunities. The companies which have been investing in Pakistan in all these years, when the Europeans were kind of not as active, like the Chinese companies, for instance, or the Turkish companies or others, they have had very good experience in Pakistan. Even Germany, for instance, like Metro. I was told by Metro people that Pakistan is their actually fastest expanding market, and it's also one of their most profitable markets as well. So the thing is, we're trying to promote this awareness in Germany, through business seminars and investment conferences and one-on-one meetings as well. And I see a bright future for economic and commercial cooperation between the two countries. We appreciate the fact that Germany has been a development cooperation partner with us for many years. It still is, and there's a lot that we could learn from each other. There's a lot where we could collaborate, in terms of promoting development. But it's not just all economic. There's cooperation in other areas like science and technology, and of course the two countries cooperate in international forums as well. Like in the UN and many other international organizations, because we have harmony of views in many areas.
And when we look at the initial political steps of Mr. Khan, new Prime Minister, he seems that is following more active foreign policy. So is it possible to say that to pursue this approach as to have more dialogue and more trade with foreign countries or with the West?
Definitely, like there's a lot of emphasis on that. Firstly, I mean, yeah, you're right in saying that this government has been very dynamic in terms of foreign policy. Imran Khan himself, the Prime Minister, he undertook some very important visits abroad. The Prime Minister, like has been very, very active. Now, what is the focus of this policy? The focus is, first of all, to have peaceful relations with all neighbors. So it's to enhance sort of, like economic cooperation within our region, but also to enhance relations with other friends, like particularly in terms of cooperation, economic cooperation, people-to-people exchanges, like, and they have been very active on that, like, and that is why what we have seen in the last 1 year, we have seen a very sort of, like happening diplomacy, a very multi-dimensional diplomacy, not just political diplomacy, not just economic diplomacy, not just public diplomacy or cultural diplomacy, but rather a mix of all those, because, for example, digital diplomacy is being employed more and more now as well. So basically, our key goal is what? To promote peace, firstly, and security, and to promote economic cooperation, through building linkages, through sort of, like facilitating contacts between businesses, through setting up institutional mechanisms, through putting in place the sort of, the infrastructure in terms of agreements and sort of MOUs, which would make it easier for businesses in sort of, in Pakistan and other countries that we want to cooperate with or sort of, collaborate with, to make it easier for the business in those countries to do so. So this is all happening, and this is just a start. The government has been in power just slightly, above a year. So in the next 3-4 years, we will see much more happening, and I believe that there's a bright future ahead of us in terms of greater trade, greater commerce between Pakistan and countries in our region, as well as countries in Europe and other continents.
And I want to listen to you, Mr. Ambassador, about the charm, culture, traditions, and magnificent nature of Pakistan, and which opportunities does Pakistan offer to tourists?
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, like Pakistan it's a beautiful country, with a very rich cultural heritage. Pakistan, if you look back in the history, this is the land of Indus civilization, Indus civilization was one of the 3 oldest civilizations in the world. That this was the most developed out of all those 3. This civilization, like 8,000 years ago, they had sort of, like running water in the places that the cities that they built. They had some sort of a sewage system, which, which we, as we know in medieval times, many countries in Europe didn't even have, So the thing is, it was such a developed civilization in sort of, like in those times. And from there on, of course, we get the sort of, the Hindu period, the Buddhist period. So we have the relics of those civilizations as well, those phases, the historical phases as well, or ages as well. Then there was the Muslim period, which lasted about 800 years. Then there was the British period, about 150 years. So there's like, influences of all those different civilizations and cultures produced a very rich civilization in Pakistan. And that is very evident in the, like, in the music, in the arts and crafts, in the architecture that we find there, in the historical sort of, archaeological sites that we have, like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. They're amazing sites. Then also, in terms of faith tourism, we have all these, because this was the place where many religions were born, like Buddhism, like Sikhism, and that is why recently, as you know, Pakistan Prime Minister inaugurated a site for the Sikhs, which is one of the holiest sites in the world, which is on a border with India, very close to that. A special corridor was sort of built for them, and thousands of Sikhs pilgrims, they came for that inauguration, and they'd be, and probably hundreds of thousands would be coming every year. There are many other sites for Sikhs as well. There are many sites, like for Buddhists, like holy sites, even for Hindus. Then again, in terms of nature, Pakistan has some of the highest mountains in the world. 8 of the top 20 mountains in the world, mountain peaks in the world, are including the second highest, K2, then Nanga Parbat and Rakaposhi. These are some of the most majestic mountains in the world. And that, we have areas in the northwest of Pakistan, which are just outstandingly beautiful. People who go there, they say that we have never seen anything like that. To give you an example, the highest mountain in Europe is perhaps, or at least, one of the highest is this Mont Blanc in Switzerland. Now, the height of that mountain, you can't even compare to the high mountains in Pakistan. Because there's a road in Pakistan, Karakoram Highway, which at one point is almost as high as this mountain. So, so the thing is that this is a totally different dimension of sort of, of natural wonders that we have in Pakistan. Then we have this beautiful coast of Arabian Sea, and there's some amazing beaches there. Then all these sort of, the provinces like Punjab has all these historical sites. And my hometown, Lahore, a city of 12 million people, which has the Shalimar Gardens and King's Mosque and the Lahore Fort and Jahangir's tomb. These are some marvelous historical sites. Then Karachi has its own charms, Multan, and sort of, Pakistan has so much to see. Now, what was the problem? The problem was, of course, this terrorism and all this sort of, this perception of being in a conflict zone.
Is it a safe country for tourists? Can you say that?
Yeah, very safe, it's very interesting. It's very pleasant for me to give you these statistics. That in Pakistan, there have not been any cases of violence against tourists in the last many years. Unlike in some of our neighboring countries, like in India, there's so many incidents, and particularly I think we all know that, there's a problem of sort of, there's a perception of sort of, threat of rape there, like a lot of tourists feel unsafe sometimes. But in Pakistan, we haven't really faced that, Then again, in terms of street crime as well, it's much safer. To be honest, it's very interesting. If you take the statistics, even at the worst time of terrorism that we were facing in Pakistan, the number of violent deaths in Pakistan, as a percentage of population, I'm not even saying in absolute numbers, as a percentage of population was still much less than the US, or some countries in Europe. Like, cities like London, Paris, for example, or New York, they are generally safe countries, safe cities. But they do have a lot of street crime, as we know. In Pakistan, many of the cities don't really have that much street crime. Karachi had a problem, but like now that has been contained. In Lahore and in many other cities, tourists would not really face that type of street crime. The overall sort of, security there, I think is actually much better than many of these sort of, cities which attract much more tourism in the world.
These are very good statistics for the people who want to come to visit to Pakistan.
Yeah.
It's good to know that. How would you present or describe Pakistan with only 3 words?
Great. Young, dynamic, idealistic.
Perfect. And where do you see Pakistan in the future?
I see Pakistan where actually many others see Pakistan as well. There are projections by Forbes, for example, and many other international investment institutions, international financial institutions, that Pakistan would be one of the major economies of the world in the 21st century. It will be a country, middle income, it's a low middle income country now, but it will be a middle income, and then, of course, at some point it will be a developed country, inshallah. It has the advantage of a very young population, a very strategic location. Once the country achieves its economic goals, then the marvelous culture of Pakistan, the marvelous tourist sites of Pakistan, they would be attracting millions and millions. Pakistani students, for example, young students, they perform so well in the international examinations. Like a lot of Pakistani students now do what you call the O levels and A levels of senior Cambridge. IG, these GCEs or IGSEs. These are international exams. Papers are actually controlled and they're checked in, they're examined in the UK. There, Pakistani students do exceptionally well. Every year in the world debating competition, Pakistan is one of the top countries. In many other fields, like in IT, information and technology, Pakistan has one of the largest number of skilled people. So I see Pakistan as a country which inshallah will be an engine of economic growth for the world, for its region. A country, which is set to remain young for many years, and these young people would be very innovative. A country which would be on the forefront of technological innovation, a country which would be contributing to peace and development in its own region, a country which would be known for its, not just for its culture and arts, but for its literature. Already, many Pakistani authors are world famous. Like I went to the Berlin Literary Festival last year. There were 3 authors invited from Pakistan, very well known internationally. So I see that in the coming years, the world will be seeing more and more of Pakistan, and in a very positive way, rather than being associated with those challenges, that our region have had in previous years. Pakistan will be seen as a country which is a big agent of positive change in its region and in the world.
I hope so.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Shall we talk a little bit about you and your family?
Sure.
Was it your childhood dream to be a diplomat, or how did you decide, and how your career shaped?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a childhood dream, but I can say that what happened was something interesting. I traveled to Europe as a teenager with my father. He brought me here, on a tour of many countries. Then we went to the US as well. We visited India as well in those times when I was a teenager. And that inspired me to pick a career because, I realized that the world is so diverse, so beautiful. There's so much to see. There's so much to imbibe from different cultures, So I then decided that I would pick a career which would allow me to travel, first of all, but more importantly, to live in different cultures and different countries, and become, to develop an international perspective. And that is the reason, that is when I decided to choose because foreign service is one of those careers, there are many others, but, this is an exciting career. And I believe that it has allowed me to do what I wanted in that way. It's an honor and a privilege to represent your country abroad,
Sure.
first of all. It's a privilege to contribute to the economic development and contribute to to the political causes of your country. But it's also a privilege to be to meet so many wonderful people all around the world. It's a privilege to imbibe all these beautiful cultures wherever you become part of these cultures. I've been to very interesting countries like Turkey, I mean, the countries where I've lived in Brazil and Bahrain and Bosnia and Germany, and sort of, So the thing is, I think it's an amazing experience. Sort of, okay, there are some challenges as well. Like on the downside, it's, you do become a dignified nomad, and you don't have one place to live because you're moving from one place to another. And sometimes your children, they suffer a bit as well, because for them, every 3 years it's like, they're uprooted.
Are they complaining about it?
Sometimes, yeah. Because you see, when they make friends and they're very settled in a school and they're very well settled in a particular city, in a house, and then when they have to change everything, it's a transition. But on the other side, I think it gives them a great deal of experience, it broadens their horizons. It makes them sort of, I think in some ways, much more of a world citizen than they would be otherwise. So, well, yeah, there are always kind of costs and benefits.
What about Berlin? How do you relate with Berlin?
Well, Berlin is a wonderful city, Berlin has lots of history, culture, arts. It's amazing in terms of, it's Germany's tradition of music is outstanding.
What do you enjoy doing most?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of, of course, I'm very interested in music and sort of operas and, museums, and I play golf, so, there are wonderful golf courses here as well. There are lots of friends that you can meet. There's some very good universities here. I have been a diplomat who's been always associated with academia as well. So here I've done that, I've extensively lectured. I actually taught a course at Humboldt University as well, on a pro bono basis, of course. So it's kind of, so I think Berlin offers you everything that a great city should offer, great food, the amazing restaurants, all types. You can find literally every cuisine in the world in Berlin, The housing is great. I think that sort of, the traffic is still manageable, you don't get traffic jams as in many other cities of the world, the big cities particularly. It's a very green city as well, not as polluted as some cities are these days. And of course, then there's this very important thing about Berlin, what is called the free spirit of Berlin, and that is something sort of, the spirit of innovation in Berlin. So yeah, I think I enjoy being here, and also the fact that this is an important world capital now, and my family is happy to be here as well.
That's important. What about, can we say that Pakistani community in Germany is at the forefront of active communities, and what is their current standing?
Pakistan has a sizable diaspora here. I would put the size of that diaspora at about 150,000. So it's not as big as the Turkish diaspora, of course, but it's still kind of a significant size. They're based mostly sort of close to Frankfurt and sort of Munich and Hamburg, in Berlin as well, in and around Berlin, and many other cities. They're doing well. I'm very happy to share that there are 5,000 Pakistani students studying in some of the best universities here in Germany. There are many of these, a big part of this diaspora, they're now German citizens. They're even born here, some of them. And they're like a bridge between two countries, because they are Germans and they also have Pakistani roots. There are many others who are still, who are working or studying or sort of or running businesses here. So it's a vibrant community. They're very active. They keep in contact with the embassy, and I think that very cognizant of their sort of their dual heritage, and they always support us in terms of promoting friendship between Pakistan and Germany.
Dear Ambassador, thank you so much.
What a pleasure to
You
have you
invite
with us.
us and you are hosting in Pakistan House. It was a great pleasure to be here, and we'll see you soon again, I hope so.
Thank you for coming, and of course, and now we will have some Pakistani tea.
I will help, definitely.